You're listening to Thunderquack Podcast Network. This is the Thunderquack Podcast, the official podcast of Thunderquack Podcast Network, where anything can happen. So strap yourselves in and hold on to your butts. It's Thunderquack time!
Hello and welcome back to the Thunderquack Podcast, the official podcast of thunderquack.com. You can get it early every Tuesday morning on patreon.com/thunderquack, or you can wait and get it late on podcast services across the galaxy every Friday. I am one of your hosts, Michael Cohen.
And I'm your other host, Amanda Conkin.
And we're back for another episode. And you know what I realized? I realized that we haven't really talked about our previous plan for release schedule was we were going to kind of do 3 weeks in a row and then take a week off.
Oh, yeah.
But we're stuck in our houses and there's nowhere to go and there's nothing else to do. So I think we're probably just going to keep going through. But before we get into what we're going to talk about in this episode, Amanda, you have a new podcast that you're going to be releasing in the Thunderquack podcast feed. What, we want to tell everybody what it is?
I'm so excited. So I am really bored and I have never read Frankenstein, the novel by Mary Shelley. And so I decided to read Frankenstein on a podcast, and I'm very excited. So I've been going through, and I'm doing it all by myself because I got I think as Mike was like speculating, all you had to do was like give me a real microphone in my house, and now I'm like, hey, I have this microphone, and I have the ability to like. Oh, also, it really helped that I have Final Cut Pro now on my like new laptop because I had it on my old laptop, so I can like edit stuff, and I want to like be creative. So it's called Amanda Reads. I don't know. I apologize. It came together like as I was doing it, but yeah, I'm having a so much fun. I've recorded the first part, so it's like there's 3 parts to the novel, and the first part has 7 chapters. So I've gone through and recorded the whole first part of the novel. I've got 2 more to go, but I think I'm gonna try to start releasing them all by myself. So Mike walked me through how to actually upload things. So I apologize if the first one doesn't work as well as it should. But I'm gonna try to do it. I'm excited. Mike's even like helping me get some like some theme music and things for it. Although we have to actually talk about how I'm supposed to edit that part together because I haven't really done that yet. But we'll figure it out.
You will figure it out. Like most things that Amanda does, she jumps in feet first and then figures out how to swim later.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's okay.
But
That's a legitimate way of learning how to do things. I'm not saying it's not. It's like, just very different from how I would approach it, which is like I'm gonna lay all this out and have a format and figure this out, and then ignore it when I'm in the middle of it.
I mean, that's fair, but I do say that like I've definitely found a groove. Like the further in I went, I was like the first episode is a little rough because it's, first of all, I haven't cold read in a really long time, and also the language is so antiquated. So I think I'm gonna release like the first 2 episodes like in the first week so that people can like read one and be like, I don't know, and then you can like listen to the second one and be like, okay, she's getting into it, and then I got the other 2. So yeah, it'll be like there's 4 episodes for the first part, so I'll do like basically like 2 episodes a week until I get through it. I think that's what I've come up with just now as I've been saying it out loud, that I think how this will go. And it's right now it is just and actually a really interesting and weird sort of like spoilery. It's like not really spoilers, but you think a novel from 1818 wouldn't necessarily have that much forbearance on modern day life. But I will say, I decided to do this podcast because I happen to be at home because we're doing a lot of self-isolation at this time in this crazy world. And in the second chapter, somebody doesn't do a very good job of staying away from somebody else with scarlet fever, and they may or may not die. So like, it was just like this weird, like, oh my gosh, I almost like wanted to stop while I was reading the novel and be like, you guys see how life is so relevant for throughout history and we all do the same thing. Anyways, so It's kind of interesting. It's like an interesting, fun science fiction novel. The birth of science fiction. I really like it.
It's funny
But
how you're like, oh yeah, and all this sort of antiquated language and whatever, and then you use the word forbearance, which indicates to me that you've been reading Frankenstein, because forbearance is not a word that most people would use in daily conversation. So, congratulations on that. It was impressive.
thanks.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I also like it's like deep cuts. Like I also found myself pronouncing laboratory, which I don't call it a laboratory, but it's just like when you get into it, you're like, ooh, this language is so old timey, and these people are so fancy, but there's also words where I just say it wrong, and it's like conscience, but because I'm like reading it out loud, I'm like conscience, and then I'm like, no, that's not how you say that word. So it's every now and then, but some of them I do get right, where I'm like, ooh, I remember. There's like, I don't know, they use a lot of like words that once you see it a couple times, you're like, ooh, this other fancy word is coming up soon. So anyways, it's exciting if you've never read Frankenstein, or even if you have, it's probably more amusing actually if you have, because you'll be like, who is this? What is this girl talking about? But if you haven't read Frankenstein, it might be an interesting way for you to sort of think of it as like a book club, where not only do you get to like read the novel along with me, because I'll be reading it out loud for you, but also then you'll get to like talk about it, because I'll give you my lovely colorful commentary as we go, and then people can like tweet at me or like email and like have conversations, and it'll be like a couple, obviously because I'm recorded a couple of them now, it won't be like immediate turnaround for like when I'll respond, but it might, maybe in between the two parts I could do like a special, like if people have thoughts or feedback, or if you're listening along with me and you want to like comment, I could do like a special episode in between the parts where I sort of talk and like read listener feedback and things like that. Oh, I'm just getting so excited. This is like my first podcast. It's like baby's first podcast. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's definitely the first one that you've been handling on your own.
Yeah.
And initially you started sending me the files, and I was like, I don't want to manage this for you. Like, I'm going to show you how to do this yourself, and you can get it up there. No, it's good. And this kind of harkens back to some stuff that we were saying a few episodes ago about the creativity and the new projects and art that will come out of this period of humanity. I was talking to somebody today about scientific advances and stuff like that that's going to get pushed forward, and it's one of those things where you can't really predict it too well, but there are some sort of easy speculation points that you can kind of run through to their conclusions, but you kind of never know, particularly with the art side of it, what's gonna end up happening.
Right,
and this is a really great example of like, you just wanted to read and you had a microphone in front of you and nothing but time and isolation. So why not create this thing? And I think that that's really cool. And hopefully is one of those things that, yeah, you're going to do this while everybody's locked up and isolated from one another. But hopefully it's something that we can continue in perpetuity. As you finish Frankenstein, you can do another book and then another book, and just kind of not necessarily all continuous, but just when you feel like it. Yeah.
And the thing that's so cool that you like sparked for me is that there's a lot of books that I know of but have never read. Like in the same way, like I know of Frankenstein. Like it's permeated popular culture in such a way that like it's impossible almost to not know Frankenstein a little bit. But to be able to have that context going into something, it means that I'm not just like this like walking around blind and not really even understanding the context of what I'm reading, but it's new to me. Like I'm discovering it along with the people that are listening, which is kind of cool. And there are so many books that I realized, like you commented, like H.G. Wells, like The Time Machine. How have I not read that yet? And so I just think it's really cool. And the thing that I think is even more cool is finding a place for it on Thunderquack, because I am particularly drawn to these sort of science fiction narratives. And I feel like there's like a very like there's like a parallel or a lateral narrative, because I get to talk a little bit about like nerdy things and about science and technology and discovery, and it's just very cool. So
yeah, Yeah, I'm excited for everybody to get to hear these first few episodes and get into it.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
yeah, so I guess we kind of have a little bit of a news section to talk about. There's been a
Oh yeah.
few more delays and things pushed, but most recently, the situation with Marvel and Disney is still a little bit uh, unclear. We don't really know what's happening with Black Widow. We know it's been delayed, but we haven't gotten a new date for it yet.
Right.
It's just kind of been pushed indefinitely.
Right.
I talked a bit about that on a Quarantine Zone episode last week, but Sony came out today and actually they announced a bunch of their movies, their tentpole flicks for later this year, that are all kind of getting pushed. I'm just gonna bring up the article here so that I can give the actual dates for the new dates that they've been pushed to. So I'm gonna leave the worst for last. We'll talk about the other ones first. Morbius has been pushed back from July 31st, 2020 to March 19th, 2021. Tom Holland, starring in Uncharted, based on the video game series, is
Ooh.
from March 5th, 2021 to October 8th, 2021. So that's just kind of later that year. And then Peter Rabbit 2, The Runaway, is moved from August 7th, 2020 to January 15th, 2021.
Is that
Honestly,
because they're like haven't finished actually filming the like live action stuff?
Uncharted has not even started filming yet. I think it's still
Oh
in
yeah, okay, that makes
pre-production.
sense. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then Peter Rabbit 2, I don't know. I don't know where that is in production. As well, an untitled Sony Marvel movie was also delayed from an original October 8th, 2021 date and is now undated. So there's no word in this article about Venom 2, which I believe is set to come out later this year. But it is set to come out, I think, in October. So that's one of those ones where it's like we haven't even gotten a trailer for that yet. It's all kind of, we really haven't seen anything. And I think the reason why we haven't seen anything for Venom 2 is that it's going to be connected to Morbius. And I think the bigger part of that is that I just got a message from Matt Campbell. He's going to be really happy to hear this. We're in the middle of recording. He just messaged me. Sonic the movie is now available on iTunes. Oh
Ooh.
man. Ooh, I got tingles. I'm so excited about this. We're right in the middle of, I guess this is also news, but we talked about that last week that Sonic was going to get.
But I was
Get
looking
a
for
new
it all
release.
weekend because I was like trying to, because I wanted to watch it this weekend, but it wasn't available on any of the
I'm gonna
platforms.
check that Google Play right now. This is
Me
breaking
too.
news. This
That's
is
what I'm doing
breaking news
too.
for those of you listening on Friday. It's been out for days, you guys. Yeah,
Don't, I'm turning on my TV, but you can ignore it to make a sound. But it's because I want to see if I can rent it with my scene points because that's the coolest thing I discovered ever is that you can use your scene points on the Cineplex store to watch things and it's just the best. So I am
Sonic the
doing that now
Hedgehog.
for Infinity.
You need Chrome or no? I'm on my phone. Don't do that to me, Google Play. Oh baby, $24.99 buy now. It is available. Oh
Available.
yes. I mean, I can't watch it until tomorrow because I got to watch it with Kara. But it's already 9:30.
Didn't
But
you take it? Didn't you take her to it?
yeah, and we love
Oh,
it,
but you just
and
gotta.
we're gonna
Oh,
watch it
okay.
again and again and
Gotcha.
again and again. Look,
Okay.
all right, okay. I have watched Frozen and Frozen 2 so many times, and I there's a show on Disney Plus called Bluey that I begrudgingly started watching with Kara, and it's actually fantastic. Actually, Amanda, you should watch an episode of Bluey because it's
Louis.
very relevant to. It's on Disney Plus. It's relevant to your job. I would
Ah.
consider it work research because
Okay.
it is. I'll actually give you an episode to watch because there's a particular episode that is like super good that I think that you'll
Is this
really
a
like.
kid's show?
It's a kid's show, but
Okay.
it's very, very well made. The animation is incredible. It's Australian.
Australian animated series. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the animation is incredible. It's so good. And then the voice performances are fantastic, and the writing is better than any kid
Nice.
show has a right to be. So we've been watching a lot of Bluey, a lot. Like there's one season available on Disney Plus, and I haven't researched yet whether or not there's a second season of the show.
There
But
is. There's
there?
60 episodes in total.
Okay,
So
good.
says Wikipedia.
Okay, well, I think there are only. It depends on how they're counting episodes because each
Oh, maybe if
episode
there's
has
30
three.
episodes. Yeah. Right.
But so there's 17 in the first season, I'm pretty sure. But I hopefully we get that second season on Disney Plus soon because we've been around that bend probably about 5 times now.
Right
And
on.
Kara is obsessed with it. But I would love to throw on something other than those 3 things. So,
Very cool.
but yeah,
I did watch Frozen 2 on Saturday night and thought of Kara. So
nice.
I was there with you guys in spirit watching
Good.
Frozen 2.
But back to the Sony news. So Morbius, I think the reason why we haven't heard anything about Venom 2 is because Morbius is going to set the stage for Venom and Morbius to be in the MCU. For them
I
to
just
be
Googled,
connected.
I know now what it is that you're going to talk about that you're really just devastated
Yeah.
about because I just Googled it and
Yeah.
Morbius, and then it told me the news of the other thing that you're going to be sad about.
Yeah. So I don't know if that will affect the release of Venom 2.
Ooh, Jared Leto is
yeah,
playing Morbius?
he's Morbius.
Cool.
Um,
I've never heard of this character before. I'm excited.
Yeah,
I
Venom
don't-
2 is still
I don't-
it's still slated for 2020, but it doesn't have a date. It still
Interesting.
doesn't have a date. It's interesting. Oh no, it does. Really release date October 2nd, 2020. Okay. Yeah, so I mean like
Do you feel like once that comes out, then they'll announce what's going on with Venom? Like you think it'll be Morbius and then Venom?
well the thing is that Morbius has been pushed all the way to next year. Right? To
Okay.
March 19th of next year. So that like I would imagine if they were going to push the release of Venom that they would have announced it now.
Right.
I think that they're holding off, but I think that what they'll have to do is that they'll probably have to film some additional scenes in order to flip it around so that Venom 2, if Venom 2, scratch that, if Morbius was supposed to establish that this is the same universe as Tom Holland's Spider-Man,
Right.
then Venom 2 could go in a very different direction, right? And
I get it.
Spider-Man as a character could be brought into the conversation in that movie because have you seen the first Venom?
I watched it as somebody else was watching it on a plane.
No, wonderful.
So
That's a no.
so-
It's actually super good.
yeah, no, I mean, I say that facetiously, but it also was semi-enjoy. Like they had the subtitles on, so like I could see like most of what was happening. It looked good.
Tom Hardy is a great actor, and everything
Yeah.
that looked bad in the trailer, those were choices. That was him making conscious choices of like, this is how we're going to play this character. And by the end of it, you actually end up loving. And one of the greatest things about that movie is that I sat through that whole movie going like, who is the voice of Venom? Like I cannot place
Because it's him, right?
that voice. It's him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
he's
yeah, he
just
does the voice, yeah.
he's so good
Yeah.
that his character of Eddie Brock and the
Yeah.
character of Venom are distinct characters, even though he's talking to himself the whole time. Venom is such a good movie, and it makes me mad because it shouldn't have been. It should have been an awful piece of garbage, and because then I would have been right. I'm wrong because for months ahead of that movie, maybe even for like a year ahead of that movie, I was like, this is going to be so awful. You can't make a Venom movie without Spider-Man. And then they did it. They made a story where it's like, I care about Eddie Brock. I care about the Venom symbiote. I care about all of this. It has some really great comic throwback moments. and some really great establishing stuff. It's a fantastic origin story. And if you can just release yourself from the canon of Venom and Spider-Man being connected from the get-go, and instead have like maybe we'll get a new interpretation of this. It kind of opens it up, and you go, okay, well now we can go in different directions, and it can be unpredictable. And that's what's great about the MCU is that it's familiar characters, familiar settings, familiar scenarios, but then it's completely unpredictable as to like Spider-Man shows up in Civil War, right? Like all these other superheroes are already around, and then here's this 15-year-old kid who shows up, and that's so different. Tony Stark is the one who makes his suit. That's so different from anything else that we've ever gotten with Spider-Man, and now it's kind of established that like, oh well, this is a great way to establish why he has a great looking suit. Why wouldn't this be the story? Why wouldn't it be Tony Stark and S.H.I.E.L.D. and whatever getting involved, right? So there's an opportunity with Venom too for them to do a similar thing of like, what if, because by the end of Venom, this is kind of spoilers, he's an anti-hero, so you know that by the end of it, he's going to figure out his jam as a hero, right? And you kind of end the movie with him like, yeah, he's a hero, he's the good guy in this story, but he's still not a good guy. Like he's still Venom.
Yeah. I feel like I've now seen it because the more that you're talking, like I knew that he was the voice, and I'm like, I must have seen it.
You must have.
Now. Like I must have. I think maybe I saw it from the end. Like I think I saw it from the middle, like when he became like basically when it attacked him. Because I don't think I saw the like I don't know any of the beginning, but I know all of the action-y parts.
Yeah.
So like basically all the good stuff. So.
No. The beginning of that movie is so good.
Oh, okay.
The first act of that, like of him getting the symbiote and figuring out how it works, and there's some good comedy stuff. It's about 6 movies in one, and it's the only real criticism that I have of it. But that criticism is also one of its strong points because it's a movie about a character with a dual identity, and the movie itself has multiple identities. It's not sure if it's an action movie or a comedy or a romantic comedy or like it just flips tone so many times. But again, it's one of those things where it's like when you're talking about it, it's like these sound like critical points, but there's something about the alchemy of it that you're like, I think it's supposed to be that. I think it was supposed to be all of these things. But yeah, I mean, like I can see a world where Venom and Eddie trying to figure out like how do we fit into this world of superheroes if they're going to open it up to that, and him sort of being more low key, more sort of street level, like Spider-Man was before he became entangled in the Tony Stark of it all. And he's sort of like flying under the radar in a bit of a rumor, a bit of a ghost sort of situation. And then things start to escalate, and he is like, because we know that Woody Harrelson as Cletus Cassidy, aka Carnage, is going to be in the second one. If Eddie has to figure out like how do I do this? How do I be a hero? And he starts to model himself after Spider-Man. Especially like in light of what happens at the end of Far From Home, it's like, well, they don't have a Spider-Man anymore. We could be the new Spider-Man, right? And for him to go like, I'm gonna be the new Spider-Man, and for the Venom symbiote to like put the spider on his chest, and he starts using webs and stuff like that, and he adopts the Spider-Man persona, could be a really cool wrench to throw in it of like. And then when Spider-Man comes back in 3, he's like, there's been this guy and he's biting people's heads off, but he's looking like his outfit is emulating my outfit, like what's going on, and he has to deal with that could actually be a really cool wrinkle to throw into Spider-Man's story, and bring it all together and tie it in with Morbius somehow. And there's really cool opportunities there. But the whole point of all of that is to go back to the fact Morbius and all these other movies have been pushed. That untitled Sony Marvel movie, we don't know what that was. Maybe it was going to be Sinister Six, which Sony has been threatening to make for a long time. But we don't know because it's untitled. It's now been pushed to it's undated. It's just we don't know when it's coming. So that kind of throws into question what's going to happen with everything that they're doing. And again, it's like how does this affect? How does Uncharted shifting, because that's Tom Holland, how does that affect Spider-Man 3, which is supposed to be, I think, next summer? There's going to be knock-on effects from all of these things for a long time. And I said I was saving the worst for last. This one actually, you said it earlier, like the Fast and the Furious getting moved was, it was the first one that got kind of like, hey, we're not going to release this in May. We're going to push it till next year. And that was a bummer because I like the Fast and the Furious movies a lot, and it was coming out my birthday weekend. So that was kind of a
fun thing.
Yeah, it was kind of like right there of like, oh, that's perfect. And now there's no perfect movie coming out for my birthday. So that's a bummer. But this one actually like upset me, like actually like viscerally upset me. And let's put it all in perspective. There are very sick people out there right now. There are people dying. This is the least of anyone's concern. That said, Ghostbusters Afterlife has been pushed to next year. It's been pushed from July 10th, 2020 to March 5th, 2021. That is a year away now. We were in the end zone coming up on this Ghostbusters movie. They just released images last week of the cup toppers for the movie theater, theater promotion. And it's like, oh, you get Slimer, you get the No Ghost logo, you get a Proton pack. And I'm like, cool, I'm going to get all of these things. And they released pictures of this line of plushies where you get the logo or you get this great Slimer. And I showed it to Kara and I was like, check it out, Slimer. And she was like, yeah, let's get it. And I was like, cool, when it comes out, we will. And now it's like, is all that stuff going to get pushed too? Obviously, all that stuff's going to get pushed and held until next year. It's just, yeah, that's a movie that I was really kind of hanging my summer on, and we were really excited from the time that they started showing the toys back at Toy Fair in January. Cara and I were getting ramped up for Ghostbusters. It was like a big thing of like this, we're gonna go see this in the theater, which is a big deal because she's almost 4 at that point, and it'll be an actual movie that's scary, right? It's like a big sort of shift. The scariest thing I think she's seen in theaters up until now is Rise of Skywalker, and obviously Ghostbusters are going to push that a little bit further. So yeah, having that pushed until next year is a bummer. It's very upsetting for me personally, but it's also the right thing to do. I mean, you want as many people as possible to be able to see these movies. That's a movie that I want to see in the theater. As much as Joe and I talked about that on the first Quarantine Zone, it's like, would you want to see this on digital? If they release it on digital, of course I'm going to see it the day that it comes out, right? If that's the only option that I have. But if I have the option to see Ghostbusters in the theater, I'm going to go to the theater. So yeah,
I don't know.
It's a bummer.
The thing about this is that it's really making me think about how much it's going to shift the landscape of film over the next year. Because if they have already put these resources into films, they're not going to have other resources for new things because they're not going to have like the platforms to like showcase them. Because if they're holding off and putting their energies into like saving the big, I don't know. I just think it's going to be an interesting and weird and kind of crappy time for filmmakers over the next little while.
I think the next year is going to be a little bit rough. I think that independent movies are actually going to end up with a really good opportunity to come in and steal the show. This sort of spring and summer. So the movies that, and granted, like if they're banking on theatrical releases. That's obviously not happening, but as much as like the bigger platforms are able to get this stuff sort of fast tracked, like getting Sonic out early, putting Frozen on Disney Plus early, that sort of thing. I would think that some of these independents have the ability to go, okay, if we can't release this in the theater, then let's just put it on digital storefronts right away.
Right.
And I was listening to Simon Sinek, who he's a sort of a leadership guru, I guess. He kind of he writes books and does talks and stuff on business leadership and that sort of thing. And he was talking about his latest book is called The Infinite Game, and it's about this mindset of like a lot of the time we think in finite terms and finite games of like, if I do this, this, and this, then I will have accomplished this thing and I will have won, right? But in business and in relationships, there's no win state, right? You've never won at business. You're either ahead or you're behind. That's kind of the way it always is. And he was saying that companies right now with a finite mindset are having a really hard time. They're going to have a really hard time. We're actually going to probably see a lot of them shut down because they think in the terms of, but this is the way we've always done it, right?
Right.
But for companies and people who think in the infinite mindset where you're either ahead or you're behind, it's like, okay, this pandemic and these shutdowns and lockdowns and all that sort of stuff, they have the potential to put us behind, but there's actually also potential for us to pivot and get ahead. And there are a lot of companies that are doing that. There are a lot of companies that, not just in entertainment, but in all sorts of things. There's a restaurant in Seattle that's like a very fancy restaurant that if you went in, you'd kind of want to be dressed up. I can't remember what it's called right now, but when Seattle went into lockdown, so this happened a few weeks before it sort of hit everywhere else because Seattle kind of got hit first. It was Seattle and San Francisco were two of the first places in North America to really start to feel it. And they said, like, okay, we're shutting down the restaurant. There's no dine-in service. But what we're going to have is, like, in order to keep everybody's jobs, we're going to be pivoting. And, like, in the morning, we're going to do, like, I can't remember what it is. I think it was, like, bagels and coffee or something like that. And it's like, so, like, we'll do delivery and, like, you'll be able to, like, come to the window and basically get it to go. At lunch, we're going to have, like, soup and sandwich or whatever it is. I can't remember exactly what their thing is. And then at dinner, we're going to do dinner delivery. So get in your order during the day and then we'll deliver dinner to your home in the evening. And like the whole aim of that was we can't be open during the midst of this, so we need to figure out something else to do. And the way that they pivoted wasn't like, well, we're going to put our menu online. It was, we need to completely rethink the way that we're doing business in order to adapt to this current situation. And so they completely restructured the restaurant, and it basically turned into these three restaurants at different times of the day that were all catered towards like takeout and delivery, which like that's the sort of mindset that I think that everybody that leaders in particular need to have right now is, how do I take care of, the people that I'm responsible for? And that results ultimately in cash flow and revenue, right? Because taking care of your employees is like, well, we got to make money in order to do that. So it kind of goes hand in hand. But I think that a lot of companies are just thinking like, oh, what do we do? And I would say that independent studios, independent productions, they have the ability to pivot and figure out, what are we doing? How do we make an event around a movie release if we're doing it on digital? Well, let's figure that out, right? Instead of saying, if we can't premiere in the theater, there's no way to premiere. which is such a non-starter, right? Like, it's like, okay, well, if that's it, then we're done. That's the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that there's an opportunity there for a lot of different productions and releases to. I mean, like, look at when Netflix is gonna eat this up, right? Like Netflix, Disney Plus,
yeah.
Amazon Prime, Hulu, like they are all taking
Well, we've
full
been
advantage.
waiting for this to happen. Yeah, like they just had been waiting for like, I don't know. And I talked about this previously, just about how like the economic models and like those antiquated systems are just built on keeping us like it doesn't benefit the consumer. And I get the idea of like theater releases being like an event, and especially the way you talk about Ghostbusters and wanting to go, but I don't know. I still think there's something to be said about meeting people where they are and finding content or finding ways to get your content to hit in different arenas and that adaptability. So I get what you're talking about when it comes to like more independent things. I don't know. I'm kind of interested to see, because I think from last time we talked, I haven't really been looking into this that much, but I do think that the estimates for when things will get back to quote unquote normal is way longer than we think it is.
Yeah.
And so live action television production and live action film production is just such a long game right now. But animated production is not necessarily going to be impacted in the same ways, which I think is interesting.
Yep.
And it might also like shift in like how we're getting like content at certain times, and it's just interesting. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say about it. It just
no, it's absolutely. I mean, like, I think you're 100% right. Like I think animation is going to kind of take over a little bit in the near term, because those are the productions that are still going forward. I think that video games are another example of like there are some video games that are going to be affected because some of these studios might not have the ability to shift their productions to a work from home setup. But I mean, I'm sure that the bigger studios have figured it out. So they're going to continue with their productions, but there are also other ones like the really, really big AAA ones like Naughty Dog, who make Uncharted and Last of Us. They do a whole bunch of performance capture. That's no different than doing a live action production.
right.
It's just that like there's no costumes, there's no sets. It's a bunch of people on a soundstage with tennis balls glued to their outfit, or ping pong balls or whatever. But it still requires a crew. It still requires the cast to be on set. And so for anything that was in the middle of shooting that stuff, that performance capture stuff, that's going to be affected. But let's say the next Mario game. The next Mario game's not affected by this. There's no performance capture in a Mario game. They're cartoon characters, right? So there's an opportunity there for some of these games to really like steal the spotlight in terms of the larger entertainment play, because they're not going to have as much competition. They're not going to be competing for time with as many movies and live action television shows. So I don't know. It's going to be like I said earlier, it's hard to predict where some of this stuff is going to net out at the end of it, but I do think that times like this, when we're in the midst of them, they seem like it couldn't possibly get worse. You know, it's easy to get caught up in the negativity of it and the day-to-day and the crisis of all of it. But like during World War II, technological advancements went by leaps and bounds because they had to, right? We wouldn't have the space program without the Cold War. It's sometimes systems need a shock in order to advance to the next level, and I think that this is definitely going to be one of those footnotes in history of
Of something that caused like a radical shift. Yeah. I feel that too.
20 years from now, when I'm talking to Cara and Cassie about, whatever thing that's happening in 20 years in the future, in the year 2040, I'm gonna be like, yeah, well, you know what? The only reason that you have that is because way back in 2020, during the global coronavirus pandemic, which you don't remember because you were too little, this happened and this happened and this happened, and then 3 years later, all of the like within a year, all of the major airlines went out of business because of X, Y, and Z, and that opened up the playing field for innovators to come and do new stuff with the space. And Elon Musk was like, hey, I made a solar powered electric plane. Does anybody want to buy 1,000 of them? Because oil and gas is like, I think that this is the, I don't know, I guess is inflection point, the right term for the change from fossil fuel over to electric vehicles.
I would just love that. I want that to happen so badly. But also, like, at the same time, I'm in a very like a bastion of green glory here in British Columbia, where I have people that are talking about the havoc that's happening in Alberta right now and all sorts of stuff. But I mean, I just like hope that what you're saying is correct, and that
something will happen as a result of all of this. Something,
I think,
at least one major thing in the way that we live our lives and society functions on a global scale is going to be affected by this. It's hard to say right now, a couple months in, what that is going to end up being. I think by the end of the year, we might have some better clues as to sort of what's coming out ahead and what real changes have happened as a result of this. I can tell you that from a business standpoint, the conversations are already happening at the company that I work for of like, when this is all done, do we need that whole office to ourselves? Like, do we need that whole space? And I think that commercial real estate's going to look very different in a couple of years as companies realize we don't need to pay thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a month for these spaces, because all we really need are meeting rooms and a couple
what I hope dies?
Private offices. Like it doesn't need to be like just create a bunch of flex desks and like 3 meeting rooms, and that's your office, and expect that you only ever have 60% of your staff in the building unless it's a special occasion, right?
Yep. I hope Airbnb dies a horrible death. Honestly though, like, it's freeing up the amount of spaces that are like hoarded by people that just have this extra property is just gross. And I mean, as somebody who has used Airbnbs in the past, I understand that it's kind of nice as a consumer, but it is something that I actually just don't think is better in the like large scheme of things for like how we function as a society.
Travel with kids and you might have a different opinion. But it's
or hotels could just make themselves cheaper and meet the market where it is.
Yeah.
Rather than like misbalancing and causing poverty to grow even wide as the housing market collapses and the gaps in available units is like non-existent. Ooh, and I'm very much looking forward to it in that the fashion of the 20s will be long shaggy beards, shaggy hair, and sweatpants all around. I really hope that is what people remember of the like 2020 fashion, is just all these people in their pajamas. It is so nice that people just are like wearing comfortable things. And I know that it's because we're all at home, but I don't know, maybe I'm the only one doing it, but it is so freeing to just be able to wear. And I have so many different pairs of sweatpants. There's so much variety in my wardrobe, even though it's all of the comfy variety.
I'm very happy for you.
I know. I'm looking on the bright side.
Yeah. Cool. You know what? Let's shift into our big topic, but before we do, we're gonna take a little break for some advertisements. Okay. So yeah, we didn't even drop a hint earlier in the episode what we would be doing for our big topic. We just kind of jumped right into it. We're gonna talk about Tiger King.
I forgot. I was like, what is our big topic today?
Tiger
King.
the recent release on Netflix. It's a Netflix original docuseries, let's call it. I think it's a little bit of a hybrid of docuseries and reality TV, but it's a very, very interesting series. I've finished the whole thing. I'm going to be careful not to spoil anything. Amanda is 3 episodes in. And we're going to talk about sort of the main talking points of what this series is. And like I said, try not to get too much into spoilers. I hope that everybody that wants to check this out checks it out and then comes back and listens. And maybe once you're done, Amanda, we'll have like a little check-in with some of your theories and conclusions that you've come to by the end of it. But just to kind of preface it, the concept of this show is that it's kind of centered around this guy in is it Oklahoma? I think it's Oklahoma.
It's one of the O's in the middle of the country.
Yeah, Joe Exotic, or
Missouri,
and he it's definitely not Missouri. And he runs or ran a tiger zoo, basically, where you go and like pet tigers and well, not adult tigers obviously, but like tiger cubs and whatnot, and he's sort of into the breeding and selling of tigers and that sort of thing, which is
Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's what I said, isn't it?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that's what I said. Which, strictly speaking, is not entirely legal. You can't sell exotic animals. It's also illegal to have them in a lot of instances without the proper sort of paperwork and whatnot. Like if you're a zoo or something like that, you can, but you can't have them in your private residence. And it's kind of about this secret world that I think a lot of us don't realize is there. Of the buying and selling of these animals and sort of the exploitation that happens, and then the type of personalities that it takes to be tied up in all of this. Yeah.
So I do have to say, I dislike trash television.
Yeah.
And I usually, as a rule, am like, no, I refuse. But having been someone who didn't watch Stranger Things when I probably should have.
Yeah.
When enough of the internet is talking about something, I feel like I need to at least like know what it is that they're talking about. And the thing that I really like, and I haven't really looked into it that much, is that this is like a documentary series. As much as it like should probably be more of like a reality series.
Yeah.
But because it like is taking this like sort of examination of things from like, you know, the guy that was making the documentary originally, was like making a documentary about reptiles or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's just like the circumstances, it's just so cool. I just find it interesting from like a filmmaking perspective, how somebody can come across a story and you don't even realize what you're making until you're already halfway through, right?
Yeah.
That he like just happened to be gathering these stories and then just over the course of the 5 years or whatever.
And by the end of the season, I think that you'll realize that he didn't know, even once he started to go like, oh, the story isn't the animals or it's not, certainly not the reptiles or anything like that, or even the tigers. It's these people.
Yeah.
I don't even think he knew at the time when he started to shift that at the 5 years ago, what he had in front of him, and it's one of those things. It ends up being more true crime than reality show, and sort of going into the making a murderer sort of territory, and it's very similar to that actually, and I really enjoy Making a Murderer as a television show. But I think that the trouble that we get into with these people, and this is kind of the main thing that I want to talk about with it, is that they're fascinating human beings. Obviously, that's why there are documentary series being made about them. But it's really easy to turn them into caricatures in your mind and not think of them as real people, think of them as characters in a TV show, and start to excuse some of their behavior and then go and buy a t-shirt with their face on it or with the logo of the show or whatever, right? Start buying merchandise and sort of playing into it in that way, which then you become a fan of these people, and that's not okay. I'll make one thing really clear that's a little bit of a spoiler. There's no good guy in this whole thing.
Oh yeah.
They're all awful humans. Like there are it's varying degrees of gray, but everybody in this series, with the exception of maybe a couple of people who are kind of just victims, almost everybody in this that is profiled in this, they are they're criminals and they're exploitationists and they're liars at in the least of concerns. Like they are not the type of people that you would want to consider a friend. And I think that's an important thing to remember when watching something like this. Because I think it's important to tell a story like this to give everybody a heads up of like, hey, this world exists out there. These people buy, sell, and trade in life, right? In the lives of these endangered animals, that there are only 4,000 left in the wild. And yet there are 5,000 to 10,000. We don't have an actual number because so much of it is illegal in captivity in North America alone, right? Like it's there's such a weird unbalanced aspect of that where it's like how are we okay with this? How are we okay with this going on? And it makes you think a lot like Blackfish did for me with captivity of orcas and cetaceans. It's like, where do you draw the line? Will you go to SeaWorld? Will you give them money? Because they're doing some pretty awful stuff. And this is another example of like know the places that you go and that you're gonna give your money to, because there's a lot of them that I don't think deserve any money.
I'd heard of Big Cat Rescue before this.
Yep.
Like it was on, like I've watched the tiger videos, and so it's just like interesting to like, I don't know, see it through these perspectives. But I mean, that is always the case. Is I think something that's really the most fascinating thing for me is that it really opens up, and this is something that I've sort of always believed, right? Is like that, like when you have two sides of something where you're like, we fight for the right and we fight for the wrong or whatever, like, and you have like good and evil, and you're like, but actually they kind of do the same thing, and it's just like how you shift like what you think you're doing, like how you talk about it. I just think that that's so fascinating that you can have like, I don't know, the hypocrisy of it, but that it's true that to save certain things you do have to lean into it a little bit in a way that can be really negative, which is everywhere, right? That like people, that's why I can't have a real argument with any of my extended family members about why oil and gas is maybe not the best thing, because they're like, well, but didn't you just drive here?
Yeah.
Didn't you drive here to come here and have this conversation with me? And it's like, well, okay. Do you understand the structure in which we live right now has a specific point of view? So the same idea that if you want to save something, you first have to understand how it functions and like be a part of that world, and then find the way to maybe tip the scales in one direction or the other. But you're still perpetuating that while being in it. Like it's just a very interesting conundrum of our society among anything. Like I'm not only just talking about like the exotic animal trade, like you have to be ingrained in the exotic animal trade to try to stop the exotic animal trade, but also like, you know, with anything to do with technology or environmental things, or even politics, like politicians. I haven't watched it yet, so I came to the day had finally arrived in which the one claim to fame I have in my family, the one thing I do for my family is that I pay for the Netflix account, so they all have Netflix because of me. And the day arrived where everybody was watching Netflix, and then I turned on Netflix and I was like, "Oh, I can't watch it because it's on the two screens already." But my mom was watching something called Hillary, and I was like, "What is this Hillary thing?" And it turns out it's a documentary about Hillary Clinton. Surprise, surprise, of course. But I saw it in like the play that happened. And so I haven't watched the documentary, but you know, when you like hover over Netflix and it like plays the trailer or whatever. And the thing that I had never thought about before is like, she's talking about Bernie Sanders sucking people in and thinking that he's this great, but he's like a career politician and it's literally his job to find hooks. And I hadn't even watched the documentary. It was just this like opening part. And I was like, don't break Bernie Sanders for me. But then I like started thinking about it where I'm like, oh man, there could be really good reasons why nobody in politics is getting behind Bernie Sanders in the same way that the population does, because maybe he's just very good at playing a very specific game. And I mean, again, not to like smudge the name of Bernie Sanders, because I quite like Bernie Sanders, but it's the same for anything. And I think that it's really interesting. This sort of garbage show about friggin' tiger people is making me think about American politics, because everything makes me think about American politics, I guess, in the end. But just that, like, you never really, like, it's always like one side of the story, and you have to go so deep into that to be able to fight it. And it's like, at the end of the day, how do you not turn? Ooh, I also watched a lot of Fast and the Furious over the weekend. Like, there was a marathon on, so like it was Too Fast and Furious, and then Tokyo Drift, and then Fast and the Furious. Anyways, but in it, you start thinking about like people that get like so ingrained to like fight the system, they become part of the system. And I was like, well, Paul Walker failed at that because he let Vin Diesel get away.
That's a really interesting way to tie that into Fast and the Furious. But you're right, because he does end up becoming one of them. But he gets in there, and then he ends up turning the rest of them. And by the sixth movie, they're no longer, because what is it? It's 4 and then 5. Fast 5 is the one where they pull the heist in. Is
that the one where they drive under the border? Yeah.
And so 6 is the one where that's the first one where Mr. Nobody comes to them and says like, "Hey, you guys work for me now. You're working for the U.S. government, and we're gonna save the world." And so 6, 7, and 8 are saving the world. Maybe it is 5. Is this 5 or 6? 4, 5. Fast 5. No, yeah, Fast 5 is the one where, that's the one where The Rock is introduced. So in 6, okay. Anyways, clearly I need to take a break and watch all the Fast and the Furious movies again.
That is what you should take away from this conversation.
But they do end up becoming the good guys, and they're all, at this point in time, heroes, including Jason Statham's character, who murdered a bunch of people in the 6th movie. Like a bunch of people, like a lot of people. Is that the 5th movie? 4th movie?
I mean, it doesn't matter. Don't try to make sense of the Fast and Furious number system. Just go with it.
Yeah. Anyways, like he murders a whole lot of people in the first one that he's in, and like he breaks into the hospital to see his brother. It is. Well,
let's bring it back to Tiger King.
Yeah.
One of the things that I thought was interesting is who was the guy that was in jail, like the guy that like got arrested for cocaine or whatever, or being a big drug lord, Joe something. I don't know.
Let me bring all of their faces back up. I had them in front of me.
One thing that
which one was for being a drug lord?
Well, yeah, because he got he basically was the one that like had the private sanctuary that he wouldn't show anybody, and then I was like, oh yeah, they let him in. Like he actually got to go into
oh man, he's gonna be deep in this cast roster. I know who you're talking about. He is like the guy that Scarface is apparently based off of.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah. So the what was I even saying about him? Why can't I like I want to know their names. This is why I'm sorry that I don't have the actual like thing up. But that he like when they were like listing off the things that he got like put in jail for, and then that he got like 100 years in jail, and I was like, whoa, this guy's like but then that he was out, and I was like, oh, interesting, the justice system is an interesting
Yeah.
thing where he like served his time and then got out of it. And then so anyway, so that's what I'm thinking, is that maybe Jason Statham's character, you know, time had passed and he'd done it right, or it's like you make up for it and then people like but people do like get over stuff, or like when you do. Anyways, I just thought that that was really fascinating, that like within this community, and even him when he was talking about it, he's kind of like, yeah, man, I didn't actually like kill the guy, but I saw the person do it. And it's just sort of like this interesting thing. He's like, and I like went to jail for that.
Yeah.
And it's just like was like fascinating the way that he was like talking about that, and how you have to have like a certain amount of like step back and sort of assess like where you're at and why you got there. And I just thought that was really like kind of interesting.
Mario was his name. Mario Tabrow. Tabrow, yeah, something like that.
Tabrow. Oh, I think Tabrow makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it like I said before, it kind of opens you up to this whole other world of sort of just weird like luxury. And although like you get these multiple sides of it, right? There are basically three sides to it early on. There's Joe Exotic, who kind of runs the trailer trash version of one of these tiger zoos. You've got Doc Bagavan Antle, who runs Myrtle Beach Safari, which is like the fanciest, like sort of most high-end, polished version of this, and he's a very specific kind of horrible person. And then you have Carol Baskin, who runs Big Cat Rescue, which is not called a zoo. It's called a non-profit sanctuary sort of thing. But she lives in like a multi-million-dollar home, and wears ridiculous, ostentatious, disgustingly gaudy outfits, and her whole house is covered in like marble. And
you know what? You can criticize Carol for many, many things, but I will say her style is maybe what makes her who she is, and a little bit that is like, if you're gonna be that kind of a lady, lean into it. So you go, Carol, and you're all full on fashion prints and cap prints.
My point is not that her outfits are tacky. My point is that she claims to be all about rescuing big cats for her sanctuary, but she's making a lot of money off of them, and it's not going into the sanctuary. It is definitely going into her pockets. So yeah, like she takes a significant paycheck from it. Obviously, you can tell based on the way that she lives, and that's how she likes it. And then you just finished the third episode, and that is the episode that details. That's the turning point in the series. I think that's the one that you have to get to, where you realize like there's more going on to this than there was in the first two, and it's only going to get crazier from there. But the speculation is that she allegedly killed her husband and fed the body to her tigers. Now, it is a bit far-fetched, but her husband just disappears one day. And then it's not so much whether or not she killed him. We don't know. That's all just speculation. It's hearsay, and it's a lot of conspiracy theory type stuff. The truth is that she made moves immediately after he died to secure his immense wealth and cut his children and his ex-wife out of anything that they may have been entitled to in his will. So, she a bad person. She's not a good person. She's a
It's one of those things that's really sketchy. You know what I find interesting? So I hadn't looked it up before, but I'd been interested because you see the filmmaker insert himself a few times
Yeah.
into, at least in the first 3 episodes. So his name is Eric Good, and I'm Googling him a little bit. And he basically is like a philanthropist that like helps save turtles. So that's why he was doing a biography, like a thing about like about reptiles,
Yeah.
because he basically has like a turtle named after him and has donated like millions of dollars to like turtle conservatories and stuff like that, which is kind of just like interesting. But he also is a very rich man.
Yeah.
And so I find that really interesting that he's going into this like this in this documentary, that you come at that obviously from a biased place in like when you are interested in preserving nature, and you are then like researching or studying, your subjects are other rich people who
Yeah.
want to be nice, kind to nature. And it's just like how they do it. Anyways, I'm excited to see how the rest of the series goes. Like, I think I'm going to keep watching it. It's like a fun little random.
Yeah.
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 It is definitely a nice distraction for the moment.
Yeah.
I
That if I feel like this is the thing that I think is interesting, Mike. Do you feel like this show would have been as popular had not everybody had nothing else to do but watch television all day?
That's hard to quantify.
Yes. Yes, it is.
It's really difficult to know what is going to create popular culture and what's not. And sometimes it is that specific mixture of the right thing at the right time,
Yeah.
and the right platform, with the right audience waiting for something. I do think that everybody with a lot of downtime right now is a positive for this show. Had it not been Tiger King, it would have been something else on Netflix. Had
Right. Yeah.
Tiger King come out 6 months ago, would it have been this big? Maybe not, but I do think that it would have. It definitely would have blipped. It definitely would have registered on the radar
Something. Yeah, yeah.
of like, have you watched this thing? But I think that right now the thing is like, we're all disconnected, and here's this thing that can connect us all.
Oh,
This one moment of like, here's a brand new thing. We're all coming at this from the same. Most of us are coming at this from the same starting point at the same time. So it's a very good water cooler sort of topic of conversation. But
um,
would it be as big? I don't know. I don't know.
who knows? I'll talk. I want to talk about two things in the series that I think are worth mentioning because they're like socially relevant.
Yeah.
Is the first one is, I kind of thought it was interesting in the tagline where it's like murder, polygamy, and mayhem, or whatever it is. And I was like, polygamy, interesting. And then you like see that like Joe Exotic has his two husbands, but I didn't realize the thing that was like I didn't realize that like polygamy was a part of the like cult, like this big cat culture. Like basically everyone that they've talked about, basically that has one of these sanctuaries in some way, like also has multiple partners, or part of the like
Yeah.
personality and cult of personality, I guess, as the second episode is called. It revolves around them using people essentially.
Yeah.
And that's something that I found very interesting because it's not actually that much about the cats.
No.
Like, and I don't know. I don't know what all the episodes are called. I don't know if there's one episode that's specifically about the cats, but so far none of these episodes are about the cats.
Oh no.
They're about the people.
The further you get
Yeah.
into this series, the less it is about the tigers.
Yeah. And-
They are set dressing to this
Oh, yeah.
story because it is about these people, and it's about these systems of abuse that they build around these very specific tools of these animals, and that's why
Yeah.
it's exploitation. Like they are using them for profit, for social capital, and
Yeah.
then they're turning that social capital into situations where they can pressure people into I mean, like, there's no beating around the bush with it. Like, they pressure them into sexual scenarios, and they're like,
Yeah.
you, like, if you want to
Yeah.
advance in this company, you got to sleep with me. And it's like, people want to be around these animals so badly because they are. I'm looking at a picture of a tiger's face right now, and they are an incredible animal. And would I love to get up close and personal with one in a safe setting? Yeah, of course I would. Anybody would. And it's like it's funny because last night we watched a movie and I let Cara pick the movie and she picked Jurassic World. And having like going through Tiger King and then watching Jurassic World and having some of these themes be very similar, of like there are scenes in Jurassic World that like they were kind of a novelty at the time, and I was like, oh, it's interesting that like this seems a little bit off from John Hammond's original dream of like these kids riding around on the baby Triceratops.
Right.
And it's like, how do you sustain that attraction? You're genetically engineering these dinosaurs. Are you like they grow up pretty fast. Like we know that scientifically that like most animals, they have very short juvenile periods. Like and they're into adolescence and they're dangerous very fast. And it's the exact same thing with this. Like you learn so much about.
It's almost like the movie was a commentary on some social issues.
Yeah, but the problem is that it's not enough of a commentary. It's very, very surface. And then it very quickly gets into, aren't dinosaurs cool? Jurassic World is not a good movie. It gets worse every time I watch it, but it has some cool moments. Everybody was trying really hard. They were just trying really hard to do different things.
I think maybe I'll watch it. Maybe I'll watch it again. I haven't watched it in a while.
Finish Tiger King first and then watch it and let me know if you get some of the same vibes that I do. If you think about things differently in it. Fair. But yeah.
I can't help but feel guilty about the time that I was in Mexico and we took pictures with a baby tiger that was on the street.
There you go.
And I remember it being one of the biggest fights I've had with my sister because she photobombed my photo and I was so mad at her, so I didn't have like my own photo with this tiger. I was also like 12.
Yeah.
But like still, it was that and churros. Me and my sister fight a lot over stupid things when we're in Mexico. Oh my God. I can't believe that I just said that out loud.
Yeah.
Anyways.
That's on a podcast now forever.
Tiger pictures and churros. Our dad was very embarrassed the time that we got into like this huge fight over a churro. Like at this like New Year's Eve like dinner with people in the resort. Anyways, it's a funny story. Because every time we eat churros, we like think about this time that we got into this huge fight over a churro. Because we're such spoiled little brats.
You can't come up to the edge of the story and then go, it's a funny story, and then try and pivot away. Now you have to tell us the story.
That's the story. There were churros that were given out at this dinner that we were at, and there was an extra churro. And me and my sister fought over this extra churro that was actually, I will say, it's one of those things where you know how sometimes parents like make it worse?
Yeah.
Like usually me and my sister like know when to stop. If we're left to our own devices, we'll get angry at each other, but we know our limit. Yeah. And we like maintain ourselves so that we're not like, we don't embarrass ourselves. But the moment that my dad comes in and tells us to stop, we just get like irate and like it makes it worse. And so like we were like gonna resolve the churro issue on our own. But then the moment that he sort of stepped in and told us to like stop fighting about this churro, it almost made it worse. Anyways, he was very embarrassed and said that we were never allowed to go anywhere with him again. I don't think that happened because I think we went many places with him many more times. But he won't let us eat churros now around him because it just makes him mad. So that's the churro story.
Couldn't you guys just split the churro in half?
Well, see, Mike, now that's probably the conclusion that me and my sister would have come to had we been allowed to resolve the churro incident ourselves. Because we're rational.
So then what was your dad's solution?
I don't remember. I don't think either of us got the churro. Because I think that's usually a dad solution, right? Where it's like, why we can't figure it out, nobody gets it. My dad doesn't sound like that at all.
I mean, there is certainly a scenario in which I would say to my girls when the time comes. I don't have to right now, but I'm going to eat this churro, and you're both going to sit and watch me, and you're going to behave yourselves. But I think in most scenarios, I would go, can you guys not just split the churro? Like, it's a churro.
No, but it's just, okay, I will have to say something too.
You're in Mexico.
I know.
The land of churros.
That was like the part of it too. And also the fact that we were like on this family vacation that we very much didn't have to pay for because we were like in high school.
Yeah.
But there's this thing too, and I can only say this because she doesn't watch like listen to the podcast.
Okay.
But like my sister is mean.
Yeah.
And so like whenever we get into fights, she usually wins just because it's the path of least resistance. Because if she doesn't get to win, everybody is miserable. And so it's just like this thing where sometimes I just wanted the freaking churro. Give me the churro. I asked for it first. Like, ugh. Anyways, whatever. It's fine. I do love her. I probably should call her because right now we're just arguing about her boyfriend who is traveling internationally because it's his job, but then she doesn't think that he needs to quarantine because it's just the same as a trip to Costco. Oh, so I came into this. Why are we talking about my sister?
I don't know. You just keep going. Like we were done. You were there. Like you made it to you were on the highway.
Oh, yeah,
and the signs were coming up, and it was like the exit's pretty soon. Like we're gonna be off of this highway pretty quick, and you just blew right past the exit, and you were like, "No, we're gonna keep going."
We're just gonna. I can get the next one around. Okay, my second part of social justice discussion in Tiger King is in the first episode or the second episode. There's like the scandal where one of the zookeepers got their arm. Like bitten off basically by the tiger and it gets amputated. One of the things that I've been researching on the internet or it like came up on a couple posts is actually that the person who that happened to is actually misgendered in the series itself. Oh, yeah. Because they're a transgender man whose name is Saf, but because that's their chosen name that I think their dead name is used a couple times in the series, or at least their like incorrect pronouns. So it's just like an interesting piece of thing that's not actually like the focus of the series at all. But the thing is like Saf, just generally speaking, is quite a lovely person. Yeah. Like the interviews and the like rationality.
I'm gonna take back something that I said earlier. I said there were no good guys in this show. Yeah. Saf is 100% not a villain. And there are a couple of other people who work at the sanctuary, at the zoo, at the GW zoo, that you're like, well, these people are clearly just victims of circumstance, and I don't think that they're bad people. I also don't think that they are innocent, but one of the aspects of this is that like you were talking about before with this cult of personality thing. All three of these main proprietors, let's call them, of these different experiences, these different zoos and sanctuaries, they build basically a cult around them, and they do it in different ways, right? Like Joe would really kind of prey on vulnerable people. And I think that probably it started from a very honorable place of he would basically, anybody who's kind of derelict in their life, he would grab them and be like, hey, if you need a job, I've got a job for you. But then I think it kind of becomes really clear that at a certain point he realizes that he can take advantage of these people. That it's better to do that than to hire people who are maybe qualified for the job, because a person who's qualified is going to ask questions. They're gonna
and that's part of it is that they rely on the people not like questioning them and just being like, I don't know. I love that dude with the long hair who's like I think that the head zookeeper of the zoo of GW,
Eric Cowie.
He is fantastic. Like what a just a dude that's just kind of like, this is what I do, and it's just like chill about it. Anyways, it's just I haven't seen the whole series, but from what I've seen so far. Oh, and I also like the reality television producer, like that starts the series,
Rick Kirkham.
Who just is like, I was hired to do a job, and I did my job well. Like it's anyways.
That story is going to get more complicated later on down the road, and then there's some questions about him. But yeah, it's a fascinating look at sort of humanity and what lengths some people will go to maintain power, honestly, because it's not even, it's in some of these instances, it's not even like they're not even comfortable. They don't have money. They're not living in a nice place. It's just maintaining this hold over people and this power and this popularity. It's really interesting how that power really corrupts, and how people will do a lot of really awful things to one another in order to maintain those power structures. And it is one of those things that makes you go like, it's not as simple as I think. You brought up Bernie Sanders earlier, and I think a lot of Bernie Sanders followers, they want to believe that electing him as the president is going to somehow change the country overnight. And all of a sudden people are going to be, and I think that we're guilty of it too in Canada, where it's like, okay, well, the Green Party, if only they could get in power, then things would be different. But even if you got a person in the top spot, it's the same as what's happening right now. Even though the person who is the president of the United States is an awful human being, he's a disgusting, disgusting person, and he's showing all of the worst sides of himself right now, to the point where like I'm done being polite about it and couching terms and speaking in coded language. Like, Donald Trump is a terrible person. He is evil, and he's just proving that right now with some of the stuff that he's doing, which we won't get into. But it doesn't.
Are you watching?
Sorry.
John Oliver talked about this actually really well on the weekend. I really love John Oliver, and I love that they're still keeping the show going. Also, really interesting. He is going to give $20,000 to whoever it is that owns this really obscure painting that was auctioned in this local auction in the 80s. It's really fun. Anyways, he was talking about how just because somebody is a terrible person or that you don't agree with them, they have the opportunity during crises to rise above that, and that crises aren't partisan, right?
Yeah.
You can find a way. And that he also was like, I really wish that we could get over this so that I could dislike the mayor or the governor of New York, because I used to not really like him, but he's doing an okay job.
Yeah,
it was just kind of funny. But anyways, carry on. But but that's what you're talking about, kind of, that Trump could be doing better, and he could,
but no, the point that I was getting to is that even with him at the head of he's the leader of the free world, as they call it, and with him doing everything that he's doing right now, in spite of all of that, good people are out every single day right now, putting themselves at risk, sacrificing and doing good work, and saving lives, defying some of the stuff that he is basically ordering at this point, and doing the right thing, despite the personal cost that they might incur. The governor of California is a good example of. Trump made a comment last week about, we're prepared to send aid and to help all the states with their individual problems. We've got lots of aid. I'm sure he said the word tremendous in there somewhere. But if they want it, they got to be nice to me. They got to be nicer to me. And it's like that right there is like, it was a veiled threat at the politicians in the state of Washington, who very early on said, we're not listening to the president. We are locking things down. We're doing so. And they started early before everybody else, as well as in California, where the decisions were made very early on against his wishes, when he was like, no, business as usual. This isn't a real thing. The China virus isn't real. And he was saying awful, horrible things. And they said, no, we're seeing this on the ground. This is a real problem. We're declaring states of emergency. We're doing this. We're doing that. The things that were in their power. And basically ignoring him. And then his response was, well, I'm going to withhold aid, which is exactly what he did to the Ukraine. He was like, I'm going to withhold aid unless you do what I want you to do. You need to say this stuff about Joe Biden. Otherwise, I'm not going we're not going to release this foreign aid stuff or whatever. And it's like, it's not, he hasn't done any one thing that makes me say that he's an evil person. It's a pattern of behavior. George Bush was a very corrupt, George W. Bush was George Bush was as well, very corrupt person, and definitely acting in his own self-interest, but and did a lot of awful, horrendous things. But I don't think that the pattern of behavior was nearly as damning as Trump's, and yet his numbers have literally never been better. His approval ratings are the highest they've been his entire presidency right now. And I did encounter someone today online, a friend, who after I made comments about Trump saying some awful things today, he came to his defense. And I was like, and what I was basically saying in my tweet was like, he's indefensible at this point. Like this behavior is if you are defending Trump, you need to evaluate whether your political ideals are more important than your moral ideology, right? Because those are different things, right? My political ideology of like I have some like very minor libertarian things in my head of like I would really rather that it was small government. I don't like federal stuff imposing things. I would rather that I think that it's more effective to have smaller government, and that different regions are going to have different ideologies and that those should be respected. A part of the reason why I say that is because we have a federal government that's trying to enforce a pipeline that this province doesn't want. So my ideology says like, stop trying to tell us what to do in our backyard. This is our choice. The people of British Columbia have spoken. We don't want this. This is our land, and it's our responsibility to protect this coastline. So, we're going to do that. That said, if that conflicted at any point with my moral ideology of what I think is right and wrong, I would drop that libertarian ideal of small government in a heartbeat. When it doesn't match with my moral ideology. And I see a lot of people who have this sort of dissonant relationship between their morals, because I know them to be good people. I know that they have good hearts. And yet they would defend a person like Trump because he's the head of their team, right? Their political party. And that, I don't know, like it just, at this point, I think that's indefensible. That's not a good excuse. He's the president. You have to support him. So, no, you don't. There are literally things in your Constitution. There are amendments specifically to protect you against the situation that you're in right now, and your government's ignoring them. And it's very frustrating to watch from afar, because to quote Obi-Wan Kenobi, I'll paraphrase him. It's a symbiote circle. What happens to them, what happens to America, affects us in Canada. It's impossible for us to not be affected by it. And when I look at the numbers, they're staggering. And it's not the hard numbers, it's the ratios, and it's the rate at which COVID-19 is spreading in the United States that like it's very quickly going to overwhelm their medical system. And
aren't they building like a makeshift, like a field hospital in Central Park?
Yeah, and they also just basically like a naval like hospital ship just docked in New York City to help deal with it. And there are some instances like New York City, San Francisco, and Seattle that are dealing with this the best that they can, and I applaud a lot of the people in positions of authority for the work that they're doing, because I do think that they're working tirelessly. I think that they're, like I said earlier, like despite the fish being rotten at the head, there are a lot of people doing really good work right now, and that's way more important to focus on. But it's also difficult. It's very difficult when there's this just mouthpiece flapping his gums saying all sorts of awful things. But yeah. Anyways, I didn't really want to get into the politics of that tonight because it.
I was gonna say,
just,
how did we not? How did
just
we do
pisses
it?
me
We were
off.
talking about Tiger Kim. Come on.
Yeah.
We can't. It's like we're programmed not to be able to talk about things other than
Yeah.
politics.
I don't know. It's probably just because it's ruffling my feathers so much. I really hope that people remember all of this in November. I think it'll be hard for them not to, but please
Let's
vote
end
for
on some
someone
good
else.
news.
Yeah.
And end on some good news. Best thing I saw all day today is the Backstreet Boys come back with "I Want It That Way," sung from their home in pajamas, and it was cute as heck.
Nice.
And I think that if you want a little bit of joy in your life, you can go watch that, and it's delightful. I just, honestly, Backstreet Boys all the way. I get that Justin Timberlake is, like, objectively more famous now, but, like, you'll never convince me that NSYNC was better than Backstreet Boys. I know.
I don't know. It's tough.
Like-
It's tough. The Backstreet Boys as a group are definitely the superior group, but if we're going to talk about the best songs, I think that the best NSYNC songs are better than the best Backstreet Boys songs.
I disagree. Okay, have you not, like, what other band dressed up like a mummy, a werewolf, a vampire, and a...
That's not a song. That's a music video.
I know, but it's so good. Everybody.
Nope.
Oh, gosh.
Super annoying
good.
song.
Good.
But hey, are there any memes? Because I know it's almost April, and some people, when they listen to this, it will be April. But soon it's gonna be May, and that
I know.
that's.
What did I say about Justin Timberlake? I get that Justin Timberlake.
But
I
that's
think
from an
that's
NSYNC song. That's
I know, that's fair.
that's not from one of his solo albums, which
It's
like
not because the song is good. It's because the song is gifable, which is very different.
I like that
Also,
song better
like-
than I like any of the Backstreet Boys songs.
Ew, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's just a difference of opinion. That's fine.
Yeah,
can, like,
it's a
agree.
good opinion versus a bad opinion.
I disagree.
Cool. Yeah, let's wrap it up there. It's late. We've been podcasting for a long time. Thank you guys for listening. How do I end this show? It's so different from the other ones because there's no news. Well, I'm not gonna post any news.
Right?
But you guys know we're part of the Thunderquack Podcast Network. Head to thunderquack.com to check out all the other great podcasts in the network. And if you like what you hear, I don't know how you couldn't. I think that this was a great episode. And when I think about what's on the uncut as well for people who are gonna pay those extra $1 and stick around after the music, this is a good episode. I like it.
Fun.
It was fun. But if you like what you heard, you can support us in 3 ways. First, costs you absolutely no money. It's free. All it takes is a second. Go into the podcast service of your choice and just leave a hopefully, I'm really hoping, a positive rating and review on whatever it is. If it's the stars or the thumbs up or an upsy doodle, or I don't know. I don't use all of these different things. There's a new podcast service every minute, it feels like. Mm-hmm. And each one of them has like a shtick where it's like, oh, this is Bean Pod. And on Bean Pod, all of your podcasts are beans. So if you like beans, vote for your beans. And it's like, why don't people just use iTunes? I don't understand. But go in there, do that. The second way is by going to store.thunderquack.com, where you can buy some merchandise. I mentioned on a podcast last week, I've been doing so many podcasts, I don't remember which one it was, but I mentioned the Cartoon Afternoon designs that I did with the Blather and Blatherskite and Let's Get Dangerous, like 90s style designs that I did, and I said, like, hey, they look really good as stickers. And somebody bought a sticker. Actually, a couple of people bought stickers in the last week. So I think that's because I specifically said that, which I think it might have been one of the Quarantine Zone episodes. But
it has made me want to go look at this, and you're correct. The Blather and Blather, it would look good as a sticker.
It's a fantastic sticker.
Same with the Let's Get Dangerous. Yeah. It's very colorful, and
they're very Saved by the Bell.
Goofy movie of you.
Yeah.
I would say goofy movie.
Yeah, that too.
Which You made a post that you wanted somebody to make. You want.
I tweeted
I think
while
Goofy.
watching an extremely Goofy movie with Kara and Cassie the other day, because we just watched Goofy movie a couple weeks ago, and then we watched an extremely Goofy movie.
Nice.
That it's time for another Goofy movie on Disney Plus, preferably. That's a story about Max as an adult, and he's got kids, and he's kind of overwhelmed by it, and Goofy shows up to help him get his priorities straight and teach him what it means to be a good dad. And I think that's because that's where I'm at in my life, and I would really like Goofy to come and remind me what being a dad is all about. Not that I necessarily need it. I think I'm a pretty good dad, but not to toot my own horn too much, but I would love to see that story. It would make me feel real good in my heart, and that's what I need right now, because the world is a chaotic and terrifying place. So yes, I would very much like that. We're in the end of the episode. Why are you starting a new topic about Goofy movie? Don't get me started. Goofy movie is one of my favorite Disney animated features of all time. It's actually number 2 after Tarzan. So and the third way to support us is by going to patreon.com/thunderquack and kicking in with your monthly pledge of support and getting cool rewards in the process. You get this episode early. You get it without ads. You can get it uncut early without ads. All 3 of those things at once. And you do that by going to patreon.com/thunderquack. It's weird because like on the other podcasts, I'm like, oh, you get cool rewards. But if you only listen to Rebel Cells, I don't know if any of the rewards are cool. So this is really the podcast to talk about what the rewards are and that they're cool. But go do that. Support us. Thank you to everybody who does. We really appreciate it. You know what?
Listen to my new podcast.
Listen to Amanda's new podcast. I forgot to mention our Patreon producers earlier, Brian Murawski and Jason Samuel. I am so sorry that I forgot to do that earlier. But there you go. You guys are in there. I need to put together a doc for this show. I have one for Rebel Cells that keeps me on track and make sure I don't forget things. I need to do that for this podcast as well. I did it once and you were reluctant to refer to it, and so I was like, whatever, this isn't worth it.
No,
but
I would look at it as soon as the podcast started and you said, Amanda, did you look at the document? And I went, oops, no, and then I opened it. And then I would refer to it while we were
part of the point of the document was to be prepared for the episode going into it. But anyways,
I don't know why you thought we should try to style this podcast in any way other than what it is.
Yeah.
Just to come to the chaos.
I need the doc in front of me so that I remember when I do the ad break to mention the Patreon producers. But thank you guys for supporting us on Patreon, in particular our Patreon producers. And you know what? Maybe I should just mention them at the top of the show. That's a great
idea. That's a better idea.
Thank you guys for listening. And we'll be back next week with another episode. We're going to be back next week? We'll be back next week, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I'm also going to be podcasting a lot. There's a lot of just like screen time and talking that it might be nice to just like
take a break.
Stop doing. I actually tried to book a wine night with my friends and I was busy until Thursday because I've got stuff I'm doing all week. I'm like, how am I at home in quarantine and busy? Anyways.
Well, hopefully we're keeping everybody busy with these. I'll be back for those of you who are listening to this on Tuesday morning, I'll be back on Wednesday night at 8:30 Pacific time with another quarantine zone. I don't have a guest for Wednesday yet. I got to figure that out. But then so I'm reducing it to 2 episodes a week because 3 episodes was a lot. So I'll be back on Wednesday and then again on Friday.
Nice.
I do have a guest for Friday that I'm very excited about, but you'll have to tune in on Wednesday to find out who that is.
Find out.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We will catch you next week.
Stay safe and be kind to one another.